Hello, today I'm joined by my guest Jamie Taylor. She's the operations director of Complete ASAP. Jamie, how are you doing?
Hi, David. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Really good. Just about to start getting going on that conference circuit again, so no doubt we'll see you guys
Yes.
out there.
Oh, definitely.
You guys are well known for sort of helping estate agents get through conveyancing and sales progression, particularly. We've seen over the years sort of a big slowdown in general
hmm
with transaction times, and it's very much been the topic of the day. What are you seeing in the market right now when it comes to sort of transaction times and fall through rates? Are we still struggling, or is there some light at the end of the tunnel?
yeah, we are seeing that transaction times are still stretched, unfortunately. It's not necessarily because of one single issue, in my opinion, but it's a lot of small delays. They then stack up throughout the chain, which is what's causing the issues, to be fair, overall. So even like the motivated sellers and buyers, they're taking longer to get to exchange still as well. You mentioned fall through rates as well. Again, they're higher than anyone would like. So, but a lot of that again comes down to uncertainty. So when there's delays, obviously usually with the legals or slow
Yeah.
responses or just people getting nervous in general
They
when things go quiet. So obviously that leads to more fall throughs.
Yeah, they get the jitters, and I think we sometimes, because we do this every day, both as agents and people helping us to progress the sales, these figures and numbers, and in the sums of money sort of involved in these transactions almost seem a little bit trivial to us because we're just dealing with volume, but this is people's lives, and it's sometimes the biggest amount of money they're ever going to spend, and if they don't have confidence, and if they have got the jitters, then they'll default to protecting themselves, which is pulling out of a transaction, basically, isn't it? Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, so that's really interesting. You mentioned, I just want to try and unpick it a little bit, but you mentioned that there were various sort of different issues that are impacting on transaction times. What are the issues that agents are working with at the moment? What are they facing? Is it a mixture of different things, or is it just communication in general?
That's usually the biggest one, but I also think capacity is a big one. So a lot of agents are being asked to do more with the same or sometimes even less resource. So
Yeah.
sales negs have to juggle instructions, viewings, their own sales progression a lot of the time, and like client care, obviously, all at once. So that's a big thing for me, I think. Obviously, legals as well is a massive pressure point. So the slower turnaround times, they stick with the agent a lot longer, more complex cases. So there's more issues that have come about. So obviously, Building Safety Act, things like that you
Yeah.
might not come across day to day. And they don't always have much visibility of it either. So, and you mentioned communication, that sits underneath all of it. So it's rarely that people don't care. It's really that updates become fragmented, the manual, or they're sat in somebody's head and
Yeah.
people don't know about them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is a big thing. And yeah, and you mentioned building safety, but there's other stuff. I mean, I had
Yeah,
a
there's loads,
really
yeah.
interesting chat with one of your colleagues a couple of months back where we were looking at leasehold and freehold transactions where, leasehold, I'm from the north, as I know you are too, but and a lot of the properties that we sell here will be on long leasehold. And those sort of things have also caused concern because some solicitors just don't know what they're handling there or have become very hesitant to handle it. So I think,
Yeah,
I think there have been some
definitely.
big changes there, haven't there?
hmm
And so I mean, you hit upon something there before, which I think is the very sort of crux of why you guys are so good at what you're doing. There are agents out there who are attempting to kind of almost be multidisciplinary, and they are marketers, they're negotiators, they are firefighters, they're mediators, they're legal experts. So they have to be everything, and they're also progressing those sales. I think most of us that are more enlightened, who've done it the hard way, now understand that sales progression is almost like a specialist field, best held in
Absolutely.
its own in its own silo almost. So either you have somebody dedicated in-house that does it, or you're outsourcing it to a fantastic company like yourselves to handle it, because it really is a specialist discipline. Having said all of that, do you think the challenges are different for both for sort of independent agents versus multi-branch agencies? So does the scale of the business sort of tend to give you different problems?
I think the challenges are similar, but how they could show up might be different. So, like independents, they often have like brilliant local knowledge and obviously really strong relationships,
Yeah.
but they're very exposed if one key person is off or overloaded. So, whereas multi-branch agencies, they usually have more volume and systems, but that can mean less visibility on individual chains and more handovers, more people involved, and then again that can slow things down. So I think overall, like in both cases, the risk's the same, really. Things
Yeah.
can fall between the cracks if the progression, like you say, isn't properly owned by somebody.
Yeah. Um, it's 2026. This is a webinar. This is the property industry. If we didn't mention AI, we would not be able to complete our prop tech bingo card today. But AI obviously is that sort of buzzword that's on the tip of everybody's tongue, and I think we will appreciate it's changing the way that we work and communicate. It's delivering a lot of efficiencies. Some of it is great. Some of it is sort of we've not yet kind of found its place for it. But in terms of the work that you guys are doing, how are Complete ASAP using AI and how is that sort of informing the experience your customers are getting?
Yeah, so we're obviously a very person-led business, so it's not extra techy or anything like that, but we are using AI and it's very practical. So it helps us with things like the reporting side of it, spotting patterns, pulling insights from meeting transcripts, basically improving how quickly information is shared. So I won't then have to spend 20 minutes after a meeting go typing up what I need to do next. It does it for me. So things like that. And it obviously helps the progressors. They have meetings with their estate agents and they have conversations with their clients and AI can pull that conversation together and write an email for them.
Yeah.
So it just supports the team by removing the admin side of it and repetition. So it's not replacing the people on the phone. It's replacing just the admin side basically. So the aim for us is simple, really, better visibility, faster responses, and few things being missed.
So the robots are not taking over humans at the moment. But where, in your opinion, where is sort of human involvement and that experience like really sort of critical? Because what I would say, just to throw in my two pence worth, it doesn't matter what transaction you're handling, it's a lot of money and it's people's lives. They do get very emotional.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress involved, and I think only a human sometimes can sort of calm them down.
Exactly. Well, I'd say exactly the same. So anywhere where there's judgment or emotion, basically.
Yeah,
So AI can flag risk, but it can't reassure a nervous buyer or challenge somebody when there's a blocker in the chain in the right tone,
yeah,
or basically manage any tricky conversation. It can't do that. It can't read between the lines when you think a seller might be losing confidence or a buyer seems to be distancing themselves a little bit. So that's where the experience really matters. Just knowing when to push, when to pause, how to keep everybody aligned. Basically, AI cannot do that.
Well, when it comes to sort of tech helping us to do our jobs and solutions to sort of help with sales progressing and conveyancing, there are pure sort of tech solutions where you don't come into contact with humans at all. Your approach is different to that. Um, do you see sort of a continuation of that hybrid approach, if you like, where you're using the best of the tech and the best of the humans all the time?
Yeah, I do. So like purely love software-led tools. They're really good at moving like the data from A to B, but our approach is different. Like software supports the people, not the other way around. So like you say, we combine the tech and dedicated sales progressors who then own the outcome of the transaction. So the human layer really is what turns the information into then the action moving forward. So I don't see that changing, to be honest.
So I sort of hinted at this earlier that I've done it the hard way, and the hard way is that you expect everybody in the office to negotiate their sales progress the sales and do their viewings and go and do their valuations and do the marketing and return your calls and do the there's a lot that goes on, and there's only so many hours in a day. So I through those experiences, I think I learned very early on that if you can get it into sort of specialist, dedicated sales progressors. But there's a lot of people out there that don't have that experience or don't know how good it can be. Just give us your kind of take on the difference that you've seen having a dedicated specialist sales progressor has made to some of the businesses that you work with.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it changes everything. So instead of, like you say, progression being someone's side job, you've got somebody that lives and breathes that transaction, that chain. They know what's happening, who needs chasing, where the risk sits, and it's today, not last week when it's too
Yeah.
late. It creates momentum basically and accountability. So it means agents, buyers, and sellers can trust that things are getting done when they should be getting done because you can't. It's difficult if somebody has got all these different things. What are they meant to be prioritizing if they've got progression on there as well? And let's be honest, nobody gets paid until it goes through, really.
That's true. That is true. That's the biggest anxiety sometimes. There is a direct link, isn't there, between pipeline and cash flow, which is it just makes such
Absolutely.
a big difference for everybody who relies on it. So if we were looking, and then we had a magic wand and we wanted to sort of enable agents to speed up transactions, because let's face it, that pipeline that we spoke about, that cash flow is reliant on speed as well as everything else. Are there some sort of practical ways that estate agents can genuinely sort of speed up transaction times?
Yeah, I'd say earlier engagement and clearer ownership, really. So earlier potential issues need to be identified, like around funding, legals, anything to do with the chain, because then the earlier they are found out, the easier they are to manage.
Yeah.
Waiting until problems become urgent, then it can add weeks onto the transaction. And obviously, that's when people lose confidence. That's when people pull out, they find other properties. It's really important about having that one clear point of responsibility for progression as well, rather than just having multiple people half owning it. I
Dip
think
in
it
and
it
out of
builds,
it. Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't build confidence for the client, and that's the one that's going to pull out the client.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. Well, I've had cases where everybody's fingerprints were all over it, but nobody knew who at the end of the day was taking responsibility for it, because and you know, there's with good intentions. I think the agents
Yeah.
try to sort of make it all come together, but I think accountability is everything in businesses. You touched on it there, but I think fall through risks are huge, obviously, because people do get the jitters if they're not being communicated with, etc. I would see you guys on the forefront of sales progression as being the canaries in the mine that are able to spot when fall through risk is there. Do you feel the same that it's kind of one of your roles to try and spot it as early as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're doing it properly, you can spot it within the first few weeks, really. So it shows signs like slow document returns, like the vague solicitor updates or hesitations when it comes around funding, any sort of reduced responsiveness. That happens fairly quickly if you're looking after the file properly. And obviously, the earlier they're spotted, like I say, the more options you've got then to resolve it or move to somebody else if you need to. And we try and keep our agents in the loop when it comes to things like that as quickly as possible.
So in terms of, I mean, you know, when we talk about the potential issues that agents face, I simplified it by just going for communication because that's always the big one. But communication is key to everything that we do, and it can set people who are getting a little bit worried, if you like, and they're getting a bit sort of concerned about the delays in transaction. Let's just sort of break this down for people. It's very rarely just one person selling to another person. There are chains involved, and in between all of those people are professional advisors. So two sets of solicitors, some of whom may have very different communication guidelines and timescales. Some people who still like to try and send a letter where an email will do. some people who will still send an email where a phone call's needed. And you've got all of that, and then you've got surveyors and mortgage brokers and everything along that sort of journey as we get towards sort of exchange and completion. Um, do you find that it keeps coming down to communication for you guys? Is communication the key to sort of keeping it warm all the time?
Yeah, it's definitely a huge part of it. So, like you say, most fall throughs, they don't start with like a big bang. It starts with silence. When people don't know what's happening, they then fill in the gaps themselves. So the confidence reduces, and it's where you need the clear, proactive communication. Even when there's nothing new to say, it's just keeping people committed and knowing what's happening, even if, like I say, nothing is happening, as long as they know somebody is actually doing something for them to try and move it forward, they understand and they will stick around a lot longer than somebody that's kept in the dark.
And it's interesting. I think the actual sort of customer experience as well at the end of all of this. So sometimes we ignore that because we get accused of being transactional, that we're just trying to sort of get it through and we've got the money in the bank and that's job done. But actually, the customers that are going away with a feeling of the service that they've been provided by the agent and also sales progression along the way, handling that sales progression, I always found it difficult. If you wanted to get a good review out of a client, you could probably do it very early on, whilst the pretty photos are being taken and everybody's kind of happy and excited about being on the market. What gets in the way is this conveyancing period where tempers fray and the relationship between the agent and the people involved in the transaction becomes a little bit more stressful, and
Mhm.
very tense, very often. So you get to the end of the transaction, and if it's not been handled correctly, they would always come away with negative kind of feeling of the relationship with their agent. You guys are able to help turn that around.
Yeah, absolutely. We are very proud of our Trustpilot score, and you can't please everybody. That's never possible. But obviously, the idea is that you get a really good review at the end of it, and I'd like to think we usually do. So, and that's because that point is when they are the most stressed, and that's when you can make a real difference to how they're feeling. Even if you don't get the transaction through in the timescale that they were hoping for, if you're there and holding their hand and looking after them throughout it, they are usually the ones that give you the best reviews anyway, because they've not had
Yeah.
the best experience from the legal side, potentially because there's been a complication, but because you've been there, you've made a massive difference for them, and that's when they recommend you, and that's when they give you reviews.
Yeah. I mean, agents in general are very focused on kind of winning instructions in the room. I think specialist service such as outsourced sales progression can actually be something that we sell as part of that differentiator in the room. So we all go in there with our pie charts on our statistics and we say, okay, we do this and we do that. But being that the hard part of the job is the sales progression, if we've got dedicated experts, and I'm going to read some stats here, which is phenomenal. But when a transaction includes a dedicated ASAP progressor, it is 21% more likely to complete. And also the flip side of that, 21% less likely to fall through.
Mhm.
It's the same fact, but in a different way. But that's something that I could weaponize surely as an agent to try and
Yeah,
stand out from the
absolutely.
crowd.
Absolutely, because obviously, I think a lot of agents think selling themselves in the room is about how much money they can get for the property, what they can do for that client in that respect. But clients may not always understand the importance of the sales progression, so it's explaining that as well, and that's definitely where we can be sold in as a positive for or any sort of dedicated sales progression resource. Even if they have it in house, it's still a massive selling point that they should be pointing out to the clients.
So I did another webinar this morning. I was talking to a couple of suppliers on there and we were talking about AI and they said, oh, you know what? Some agents are just completely fed up of hearing about it. Now, if we're fed up of hearing about it, the members of the public whose lives that, they read about it in the newspapers, they see it online, and it's a brave new world where they don't know what to trust and what not to trust. And there's a lot of stuff out there masquerading as genuine that has just been fabricated digitally. Do you, there's a little bit of warning there for sort of how sensibly agents do sort of implement AI and automation, um, I take it you guys are operating a cautious response as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think you start small and you start with your pain points. Like I say, AI is brilliant for things like reporting, call summaries, document tracking, just reducing admin. So it's not replacing the relationships, but it's useful for you internally, not necessarily using it massively externally. It's
Yeah.
trying, because I think the mistake that some people may make is trying to automate everything at once, and making that customer facing. You could probably save yourself a lot of time every day personally, rather than thinking about how it can be used for the customer. Think about how you can use it for yourself. Anything that can give you better visibility, anything that can free you up to speak to clients more, and because I think that would be a good use of it.
Well, Jamie, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I can just advise anybody watching this that the lovely folk at Complete ASAP are really friendly, but also really knowledgeable about what it is that we do and where we add value as agents in a transaction. And the reviews that you're getting from people, what I like is very often an agent will receive a glowing review at the end and they will reference the person at Complete ASAP that handled the transaction, which is shows, that you're getting it right consistently, that members of the public acknowledge, if you like, that this is, really a key part. And they're getting great service, and that reflects really well on the agent. It's
Yeah.
also reflecting really well on you guys. And I take it the best way to sort of get to know you guys is you can catch them at a conference near you. They're normally chucking around chocolate coins and things like that. But also equally, it's just a discovery call that you set up and you start to learn a bit more about the business. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sarah, our business development manager, she'll do a demo for anybody that's interested.
Fantastic. Jamie, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.